I'd like to call the meeting to order. If Chairman Carmichael would be so kind as to give us our invocation.
I had asked the gentleman on my right to have that esteemed honor.
Be glad to. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we humbly come before you this morning, grateful for this opportunity to be in thy service, especially in service to our community and our country. We're thankful for all the many blessings we receive, for the safety and health of our families and friends and loved ones. And we're grateful for the protection over our community. And pray now, Father, that as we meet and discuss the needs and the things that need to happen, that we'll be inspired by thy Spirit, that we may listen to and be guided by thee. We're grateful for thy Son, Jesus Christ, and for his atonement. And we know that all things are possible with his help. So with that, we ask for thy Spirit to be with us here in this meeting, and do so in the sacred name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I'm going to move into the old items here. All right. So we had our inaugural 2 months ago in a few days on the 16th. We had a great meeting in here. It was actually larger, and there were some more citizens that came in last month also. Kind of kicked it off for an economic development collaborative effort around the county. Strength in unity in different organizations. For some reason, to me, it's important that this is just an informal group of people in a room that are interested in this county and strategic growth and the support of our new EDO Executive Director, Michael Hughes. And we don't have a constitutional authority like the IDA does, with written laws to say what you can and can't do, or like the DOC does. We're just a group in here made up. No constitutional authority as a group or statutorial authority. But I think that's good. And I think we're here for the right reasons. We want to support Michael and the entire EDO Board of Trustees, chaired by Brian Stover, and Sandy's on there for VOC representatives. You want to state that some of the other members?
Amanda, I can't pronounce her last name. Kushka. There you go. Amanda Kenthigpen. We have 2 non-voting members, I believe. One from the city of Hiram and one from Paulding County. And we don't have yet, I don't believe, somebody from the city of Dallas. Stacy's on there.
We have a resident board seat that we will be selecting.
Right.
I think we just appointed Tommy from the IBA, is that correct?
Yeah, as well as IBA representative.
Yeah, he's the IBA representative. It had to be a non-elected official, and Tommy was the winner of that lottery.
We're loading Tommy up, aren't we? So our mission and purpose is just to work together for economic development in this county. I've had this made about a year ago. I carried around with me some of the archery target that shows too much red. We have actually lowered the red down to about 86%. And when we get the Costco coming online, that'll help it a little bit. But we've got too little yellow, the commercial and industrial. And when you see compared to surrounding counties, even one to our west, they got 28% commercial industrial, and that beats us. I don't like it, so I want to change that. I showed y'all this at our first meeting. Intern did this. This is what we don't want to be as far as review. We don't want to be 8 different entities. By the way, the Board of Education, well, I already told you that. They're not going to be here today. But we don't want to be silos, and this is my very crude picture. I should have redone it, but if we get all these triangles together with these 8 different groups, and we can wrap it up and give it to our citizens, at the great benefit of our citizens, and we can reduce the taxes, the property taxes, because we'll have more commercial. We can therefore lower the millage rate, both in the cities. We'll only hire them, but you don't have, y'all the ones that don't have it, but Dallas does. anytime we can make the yellow bigger, we're gonna have the opportunity to decrease taxes for our citizens. I think all of us want to do that. So we're gonna erase the silos and use an integrated team approach as we move ahead. We're gonna hear today from Michael on the incentives and abatements that are available, and it's kind of guidelines that we got them out late to everybody, but I spent a couple of hours studying yesterday and today, and there's just a lot of good information in there that you sent out. So as far as guidelines for the cities in the county, I guess you don't want these two old items.
I want to make sure that before the chairman moves on, last time we were together, everybody was supposed to take the guidelines that Michael gave you back to your respective organizations and make sure that we could get those adopted at your level, and if you had any issues, I think Dallas was going to talk about tap fees, is that right? There were some other items. Now, look, I realize everybody probably left this meeting last time, went back and got busy and probably didn't do that, but I want to make sure that we actually take those guidelines back. If you have, how many people were able to get that done? I figured that was going to be the answer. So I'd like to say within the next 14 days or your next meeting, if you guys could get that as an agenda item, because we really need Michael to be able to operate anywhere in the county under the same set of guidelines.
And I would just offer if it would be helpful to maybe come to a work session with the mayor and councils of both cities to have those discussions and go through.
What are you doing Tuesday night?
Tuesday night. Can be available.
6 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Is that your work session?
Everything's virtual, so we're doing a work session and our regular meeting on Wednesday. We might make a call meeting, just have you come to the presentation.
Okay.
That might work out better, because right now we still do all of our council, mayor and council meetings online.
Okay.
So is it possible for you to take all the stuff that we've gotten over several emails, condense it for these two guys, get it back to them, and highlight the stuff that you think is gonna, that you see as not congruent? Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah, and then let's see if we can get this worked out.
The guidelines that y'all are looking for, Michael, is it to have everything mimic the county?
Yeah, to the extent that it makes practical sense to do so, because I know each city's probably gonna be a little bit
Right.
different. So I would almost ask if your staffs would take a look at it
Yeah.
first, because I don't know your inner workings as well as I should at this point. So
Right.
maybe they should look at the guidelines to see if it see where they see the hiccups.
So you think that if they do that and take a reasonable review of it, these two meetings may be a little bit too quick, maybe we do the next one after that?
We can certainly, yeah, we can do that.
To give all of their staff time to go through those
Exactly.
documents?
And maybe it makes more sense for me to meet with your staffs, with your
Right.
city managers and their other appropriate staff, go through these guidelines, make the tweaks, and then come to your a work session.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I agree 100%. I think it'd be best first for us to see the exact guidelines.
Right.
And you can meet with our department heads and our city manager.
Yep.
And see where we're off on, if there's any way to change it to get it on the same page.
Yep.
I highly doubt being able to get 100% on the same page.
Look, if we get 95% of the way there, then that's all we're looking, what we're trying to do is, what we're trying to do is make this process easy.
Right. I mean, I agree.
Okay.
But
So-
I think if you can get us those guidelines and we.
So Michael, when you also show them the taxes, so let's get the whole package. If you're gonna get in front of them, let's not give them a little slice of the pie, give them everything that you, give them the whole package. They're gonna hear about the incentives today, but I think it's important for their staffs to see it in writing and understand what we're talking about doing and make sure that at a granular level on the incentive side, the cities are okay with some of that too.
Right.
And if you're not, it's not a big deal, but what I would like to have is something that Michael can work from, that he understands, and that doesn't make it an impediment to getting the ball pushed down the field.
I agree 100%. I should be okay. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry.
Shouldn't take long for people.
So 10 o'clock? Sorry.
No filter. All right.
Sorry, didn't mean to
So,
interrupt.
Michael, what you mailed out, or what you emailed out, these are the actual bylaws of the EDO. And of course, as I was reading through this, EDO and PCEDO, Paulding County Economic Development Organization, as opposed to Paulding County Economic Development. It's the same thing, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So, whichever lawyer drew it up, just use PCED, just make you aware of that. There's some good stuff in here. Paulding County Economic Development Incorporated established duties to promote and enhance the economic vitality of Paulding County, Georgia, by, among other goals, recruiting new businesses, helping local businesses sustain and expand their local operations, promote tourism, develop a quality workforce by focusing on employment, job skills, training, support entrepreneurs, and foster startup activity, enhance and protect the quality of life, and maintain vibrant downtowns and community centers. The Board of Commissioners hereby establishes the Economic Development Organization, which shall be governed by a board of directors, as Sandy mentioned here, by these recently approved bylaws. So all the bylaws were scrubbed about a year ago. And, we got some good guidance here. So I just speak to any of that you want to, as far as how you envision all of us, you already have, and the fact that you're gonna meet with the cities.
Sure. And just so everyone is aware, I tried to take the new bylaws that sort of repositioned the EDO a little bit, incorporated that into this ordinance. And let me just say this: these are 5 ordinances that have eligibility criteria and standards, but they're really a menu of options for the diverse business needs of the community, whether they're entrepreneurs, innovators, to business retention, to targeted industry, or those big mega projects that come through special economic impact. If you don't go away with it, I want you to go away with understanding that this is a menu of options. We're not just one type of business, one type of industry in Paulding County, like many other counties, but we want to be flexible in terms of what we have in the toolkit to offer businesses.
Which we haven't had up until this point, it's just kind of been, throwing darts.
Right. So this is an effort to try to, I won't say be all things to all businesses, because nobody is, but this is a good foundation I think we can grow from. And so, again, it's entrepreneurs, small business, business retention, targeted industries, and special economic impact. So you'll see as you go through this document, what the purpose of the incentive is, what the eligibility criteria is, and then what the actual incentive services that business will receive. Local incentives are extremely important, but when they're packaged with state incentives, that's even better. And then the other piece to that are property tax incentives that may be available through development, I say development, but through the IBA can be used as well. So all of that is put into a package and looked at on a project-by-project basis. The other thing that this lays out are basically some accountability and transparency that's important, I think, when businesses are approaching local government about incentives. And so there's some accountability in here in terms of entering into an agreement, but then also evaluating the project to make sure it makes a good business case to provide incentives. And that the jobs that are being created are high level and the types of jobs that we want in this community. There's also a long-term, I say long-term, but there's a requirement in these ordinances too, that they do an annual report to the county, making sure that they're continuing to comply with the terms of the original terms that were approved. And we call that a compliance report. So every year, Paulding County, City of Hiram, or City of Dallas or City of Hiram would get a compliance report that says, yes, company X still has 50 jobs, capital investment is still in place, yada, 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 yada. So you would have.
And that compliance report, can we get that, can we disseminate that? I mean, particularly to all the folks that have stakeholders in that area, and I want to make sure that everybody knows that if they're going to go back and ask their folks to adopt the guidelines, and you're also going to get their information in return to support the ask.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see, just trying to think. So again, these are just the highlights. I won't go through all of this. I mean, unless you want me to go through all of these. There are 5 programs here, and I'm happy to go through all of that if you want me to.
Let's do it.
What I would like is, from your experience in Cobb, for these different categories, type incentives, if you can recall company X, Y, Z, or whoever it was, and how many cities do you have in Cobb? 5?
6.
6. But any actual experience that you had where you applied these, rather than, you know, you can do it any way you want to.
Okay.
How it sinks in with me more if you give a specific example.
Yeah, I can give you a specific example. One would be, let's say, ThyssenKrupp, that's currently under construction down at the Battery. If you've driven by there, 285 and 75.
That's a nice building.
So you've got a huge tower that's under construction, and then their related office project right next to it. They applied for incentive through our Special Economic Impact Program. And because that was a, get this right, $260 million project with 863 jobs, they were given an incentive. We accepted an application, evaluated their application using this LOCI model that does a fiscal impact analysis. And that gets back to the, you got to make a business case to provide the incentive.
And that's the software we own now.
Yeah, that is the software.
The county's purchased the software, actually the IBA's purchased
Correct.
the software for the EDOs used to be able to do that evaluation.
So we staff went through their application, took the information from the application, put it into the model, and then it spits out a result. And it met our criteria. And we made a recommendation to the board that we approve an incentive agreement with ThyssenKrupp, or actually their developer at that point. And we executed an agreement, and it laid out, they're going to build a $260 million project, create 863 jobs. And what we did in that case is we put a cap on their building permit fee. They put a cap on their business license fee, and then the development authority in this case granted them a property tax abatement for a 10-year term. And the way the abatement works in Cobb is it's 10 years. First year they pay 100%, and then it slides down in increments of 10% over that 10-year term until year 11, where they're back on the
So they actually do pay the first year up front, and so it's backwards.
It's back. I'm sorry, it's back. I'm sorry, I think I told you backwards. It's 0 the first year,
Oh.
and then it ramps up. Excuse me, I told you backwards. So it's 0 the first year, and then it ramps up. And they're paying full property tax by year 11. Because that project is still under construction, the actual compliance portion of that has not actually started yet, and that was contemplated in the agreement. So it probably won't start until 2021. You got that construction period of usually sometimes a year and a half, 2 years, maybe 2.5, it just depends on how long the project goes. So that project is probably a good representative of one that people have seen, one that went through the process, one that was supported by the Board of Commissioners, well, almost all of the Board of Commissioners, not unanimously, but most of the board. That happens from time to
I
time.
was gonna say, is anything unanimous in Cobb anymore?
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Michael,
Yes.
on that program for promised jobs for the area, is there a provision in there that they have to be locally hired? And I'll tell you the reason I asked the question. I actually read an article this morning that there's a Korean company that's building this huge building in the state of Georgia. It was supposed to create 2,600 jobs. Well, what they did, instead of giving jobs to the local tradesmen, they brought in all these people from Korea. They've been living like 5 to a house. And so the promise of 2,600 jobs, they actually did. They imported 1,600 from Korea.
Right.
Is there any way to stipulate that?
We can, we've tried that. I remember trying that while I was in Cobb. And I recall that our legal counsel had some hesitation about putting that in there. And how do you enforce it? That was an issue.
Compliance review would be a nightmare to make sure 2,600 people actually lived in the county. That's, I think, the problem. But I hear where you're at. I'm with you, Frank. How do you avoid giving somebody a huge tax incentive? Now, I guess my question is this: if they work in the state, I mean, really, you're still collecting the tax revenue that you would generate from having 2,600 people work in that building.
Absolutely.
And the economic impact is just not as, I don't know, that's a catch-22.
I mean, they're theoretically, they're buying goods and services, maybe there's a sales tax swath in place, and you're benefiting from that. Maybe they're buying vehicles as well, you're benefiting from that.
$200 million building's not anything to slouch at either. I mean, I don't know what the property tax on 200 million is, but that's a pretty big bill.
Yeah. I mean, and let me just say this, that's on this end. I've done other projects that were
Yeah, but I
10.
mean, with respect to what Frank was saying,
Well, yeah.
2,600 people, that's still pretty big. I'm certain that's a fairly large facility.
Would you also speak to how you interface with the cities, or how we will in the future, and also the chamber,
Sure.
the airport authority?
Sure. I think, I'll just say in Cobb, each of the cities have their own economic development staffs, but we being my team, met with our counterparts on a quarterly basis, where we shared and exchanged information about economic development projects that were going on, or any other special local initiatives that they were doing. And that was just a way to keep the lines of communication open on a regular basis, and I envision that happening here as well, meeting with the cities on a regular basis, at least the appropriate staff, to just talk about economic development opportunities that we're seeing, maybe any special projects or things that you guys have got going on, so that we're aware of that and figure out how we might be able to support those efforts. I think the other thing that I envision too is putting together a short-term, intermediate, and long-term economic development strategy for the county, but I think the cities as well, where we kind of lay out some maybe broad, but some goals, aspirational goals from an economic development standpoint. And I've actually have a few here I'll just touch on real quick. One is to just promote the county image as well as the city's images. And then these are just broad goals, and then position the county as well as the cities for economic development. And what's key about this is that once you have these broad goals, then you can begin to develop more detailed objectives And then once you, or strategies, I should say, and then once you have the strategies, you can get to identify who's responsible for implementing those. And then you can determine the schedule for implementation and then any additional resources that you might need to implement those. I would envision the strategy as something we can bring to a mayor and council at some point to take some action on, so that we're all sort of on the same page from that standpoint, if that makes sense. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that, you know, just when the rubber meets the road, and you actually see how you'll integrate and interface with one another. And you're gonna come report to the board of commissioners, so we have the
Yes.
chamber report and then the airport.
Right.
And then you, the IBA and the EDO.
The other thing I mentioned too, Chairman, just two initiatives, I think I brought it before, but I'll bring up again too, is business walks. I was just talking to somebody this morning about business walks, actually getting out in the community and talking with businesses about how they're doing in their respective communities, whether it's Dallas or Hiram. And we can partner with our other economic development partners in the community, whether it's the chamber. I'd love to have someone from the state economic development office come join us. Maybe somebody from Workforce or the Career Academy could as well. I think the opportunity there is to sit down with them, maybe go over a survey with them, and they can explain to you how it is to do business in your respective jurisdictions. And some of the feedback that you get could be really helpful, I think, in terms of sharing it with folks in your community development or permitting office, DOT, public safety, or what have you. You know, oftentimes we think we're out there doing a great job, and don't get me wrong, everybody is doing a great job, but there may be room for improvement, and that's the way we took it when we did this initiative in Cobb County, and it was really just sort of a best practice. We did it by commission district, so we also invited a commissioner to join us if we were in their particular district, and they can hear firsthand what some of the challenges or issues may be as well. So that's a way I look at partnering as well with the city.
Is this incentive program that you're looking to put together, is it a coverall, all business entities on size-wise, or do they have to meet a certain threshold to get those incentives?
There are, each of the programs I was going over earlier, there are some eligibility criteria. So for instance, one of the ones I want to show you. So under, let's just say targeted industry, and that's section 2-172. You'll see the purpose, but below that you'll see eligibility.
Yeah.
And under eligibility, you'll see these are the different types of industries that would qualify for incentives under that program. But they would have to add at least 25 new jobs, and then pay an average salary or wage that's 1.25 times the county's current average in that area. And the reason for that is, at least my experience has been, you want to incentivize those companies that are actually paying really good wages, or really above what that current average is in your county. That's just a best practice that I've observed over the years. And then they also have to have estimated economic fiscal impact, net present value of at least $250,000 in the county. And that gets back to the tool that we have now from the low-high model to be able to calculate that.
So the software that we mentioned from the IBA, will spit out kind of what incentives they will qualify for and what level, if it's a 5-year or 10-year, what percentage?
It will tell us if they, based on the information they provided, if they meet this $250,000 net present value. We'll know whether they, the 10-year, well, in Cobb it was always a standard 10-year term. We got in trouble when we tried to get creative in doing the abatement period, let's say 5-year or 7-year term. I said we got in trouble. It was recommended by our counsel to the tax assessor's office that we actually do it uniformly and from a legal perspective felt it was best that it be uniform across the board, because you can't defend 5 year, 7 year.
So basically, if you
3 year.
wanted to do something different, just make a different category, and so that you can
Yes.
fit somebody into it. So if we wanted to do a 5-year plan, from the chamber came back and said, Michael, I think it'd be better to do a 5-year than a 10, then we could, I think, always build a program around a 5-year plan, right?
You could, but I would, before I commit to that, I would want to talk to the tax assessor's office and their legal counsel to see what their position might be on that.
So, and we need their buy-in anyway.
Yes.
I mean, we gotta have James and his folks.
Right, and I would also say, the school board too, just because potentially be
Sure.
abating their taxes as well. And I think to the extent that, they're a partner in that, all of this as well, they need to be made aware of it ahead of time and hopefully get comfortable with it.
I would think it would depend on what exactly, what Frank mentioned, what they're bringing in, the number of jobs, or
Without question.
the dollar investment.
Well, that and their school boards probably like Cobb's. If it's residential, they probably don't want to provide incentives for residential, and I get that, because they have the potential for great impacts on their facilities. Generally, if it's commercial, they're okay. Generally, I'll say they're okay with it.
Michael hit on a thing that I really, from this meeting, wanted to get on the table. I feel like we've had a scattershot approach to economic development in Polk County for a very long time. And by reconstituting the EDO, hiring Michael, we're beginning to bring all of that back into focus in a meaningful way. But until we actually have a master plan for the county that includes both the city of Hiram and the city of Dallas, with all of us bought into that plan, what these two cities want to look like in a 5, a 10, a 20-year period, I don't know how. I'll let some of the folks who've done this a long time dictate the windows of time. But I think if we want to actually change this in a meaningful way, we've got to have a master plan to do it. And that's going to take a little bit of work. But I think Michael said it best. I don't want to ask everybody to come to this meeting once a quarter without some measurable goals for the next meeting to be able to achieve something. If you're going to spend your time coming here, I want to make sure that whatever we're doing is pushing the ball down the field for each of us individually in our respective organizations, but as a whole for the county. And I don't know where to start with that. That's a monumental task, but I think you got to start biting that elephant off at some place. And that's the reason I asked everybody to look at the stuff last meeting and try to get it adopted. But I really want to set a goal to achieve those things for this next meeting that we talked about just now with Michael, so that we've got you guys on the same page. That's a step in the right direction that allows us to start, whether we call it crawling, walking, whatever.
There's a synergy in what he's talking about that we've never had before. And yeah, you and your city council may have everything, that, or 90% of what you need, but that other 10%, we want to use Michael and his assets and incentives and the IBA in there, so that.
Well, you guys don't have an economic development team in either city, right?
No, we're developing a downtown development authority, right.
So, I mean, I would think that Michael should have at least a line of sight to that, if you guys are okay with that. That's the other piece of this. I don't want this to feel like that the IBA or the Board of Commissioners is shoving anything down anybody's throat. This has got to be a team effort. It's got to be everybody's got to see the value in what we're doing and understand that if we're going to fix it, that we have to work together. It just can't be anybody on an island. And I take we got all these little in-squabbles going on with with the county in certain places, and when we gotta fix that, you know, the airport authority with the BOC, that's much better now. One of y'all houses your prisoners in Cobb County, I don't know which one that is, but that, okay. So, you know, those kinds of things, we're sending money out of the county that we should be keeping here, and we're paying lawyers that we shouldn't be paying, and we're doing things that are detrimental to driving the boat to move Paulding County forward. And I think that this group has finally gotten around the table and said, enough's enough, how do we fix this? And I think it's important for us to build some short-term goals that can turn into some medium timeline goals that can turn into a master plan. And I don't know what that looks like, but I sure would, by the time my time's up, like to see that we're moving in that direction in a meaningful way on a train that isn't gonna get stopped by any one person or organization. Does that make sense?
It does. And let me just, I'm fortunate enough, I've got a staff person that will be starting August 31st. Young lady I used to work with in Cobb. I think one of the first priorities when she comes on board will be to sit down. She and I will begin to lay out a short-term work program that we can begin to fill in some of the strategies and then some of the specific objectives and then the timeline for accomplishing those. So I would say if you get
But I'm talking about even more holistic
totally
than
in
that.
that, okay.
Frank and James need their folks to say, hey, this is what we would like Hiram and Dallas to look like in 10 years. And Chairman Carmichael and his group need to say, in 10 years, Paulding County needs to look like this, or it'll be heading in this direction. And the airport authority needs to say, hey, our airport's gonna look like this. And all of those things are coming together to give you a picture of what type of business and how you can, if somebody comes to you and says, right now, I'd love to put in a Boeing manufacturing plant right across the runway over there, is that something that we could do, given the situation that we've got right now? Realistically, we couldn't compete for that business. So what do we have to do to get Paulding, the two cities, and the county in a position where you can go and bring a Boeing into Paulding County? And that's an ambitious goal, but my point in that is we've got to walk before we run, and we couldn't go attract an Amazon to Paulding County right now. I just don't think we could do it. We're not set up for it yet, but we need to figure out what we got to do to put those building blocks in place so that we can do it.
I'll say this, I think is Ann Littman going to join us?
She was at the Bentley meeting, and I think she'll be here in about 45 minutes.
I know there are two major updates I think the county's going to be embarking on next year, which is the transportation plan, if I'm not mistaken, and also the comprehensive plan. So I think those efforts are a good start at what you're describing, Dan, in terms of serving as a blueprint, looking at, in particular, I'll say your future land use map and how your future land use map can be adjusted to encourage more commercial activities so that red pie down there can begin to move a little further or add more yellow to it, we'll put it that way. In some of these Bentley meetings I've been in, we've talked about actually making some adjustments to the county's future land use map where we have more commercial nodes. Those commercial nodes are key because they serve as a mechanism and a signal to the development community, okay, this is what they want here, commercial development at this intersection, where you can accommodate more commercial growth because you've got hopefully transportation, infrastructure, water and sewer. That's something we'll have to talk about, but it's a tool that's helpful for communicating what your vision is, and also to help you tell the development community that's not what we're looking for in that location. So if you get rezoning requests are inconsistent with it, it's a way to turn down that request if you if that's your desire to do so. So that's all I'm saying.
The airport authority has a master plan that, actually Terry Tidmore and I reviewed, Robin and me. So, I don't think we follow up on it frequently enough.
Actually, before the FBO problem, we were passing back and forth an update because many of those things that we had at the very beginning of it were met. So we're revising it, and it's on Terry's desk right now.
So this is a great segue. Let's do a little bit of an organizational update. You want to just kind of start and tell people what, you know, look, I think the FBO conversation's important. I think what, you know, the future plans, kind of what we're doing, so.
While it's not the best news, it's, there's a good future there. So as far as the airport goes, on your list here, you're talking about pandemic impact as well. We're probably off about 50%, but what compounds that is that the current tenant, the FBO, Pauling Jet Center, did not renew their lease. And because of that, they will be on the way out. The airport authority just yesterday discussed our options, in which we have an unsolicited proposal for someone to come in and offer services. The other option is to do request for proposals, and the third would be to take it in-house. And after much discussion and reviewing of the data, we decided to take it in-house. And one of the big movers for that was that we can control the quality. We can control the face of Paulding County. The problem that we have now out here, as I see it, is that this other party that was here did not present that in the best light. And what has happened with the lease and the failure to renew it and the discussions going forward is those thinking that, oh yes, we started the discussion to renew it, but they did not follow what was in the lease to renew it, has actually fallen all the way off to where they haven't bought any fuel. So this airport can't offer any fuel.
For about the next 45 days.
Right.
We're dry here because we don't have control of it, and
So it's just a way of this tenant locking it up.
to Dave's credit, it's under his leadership, Dave's spent a lot of time in the last month and a half just digging in to figure out the best path forward for the airport. And I think what he did yesterday was brought a great fuel contract, a fuel partner that'll come in, and I think that we'll get, and I think this is important for everybody to know, we took 2 steps back with this, but I think in a year, we're gonna be looking at coming out of taking more money from the Board of Commissioners. I think we're gonna have some revenue here that we'll be able to decrease what the Board of Commissioners has to support from a financial perspective. Would that be a fair statement, Dave?
Yeah, I would say that's
Yeah.
fair. And many of you that you're experiencing this, I mean, with the flight department that I'm employed with, last month we flew a total of 14 hours, and all that was for currency to keep the pilots proficient. That was no business travel. So as soon as we can get past this pandemic and this traveler confidence problem, I think that we'll start to see some of that travel coming back. I mean, what you've got now is you do have some training that's going on here, but as far as business travel, it's very reduced.
But that's COVID related.
That's COVID
And
related.
and the fact that our tenant ran our fuel out at this point in time was actually somewhat of a blessing in disguise, because there's really not much fuel being sold anyway. So
Right.
we're not taking it on the chin where we'd be selling a quarter or none of what we would normally sell. We are selling none of what we would normally sell, but I think that 0 is a much smaller slice of the overall pie than it would have been if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic and had normal operations going on out here. So
Great time to reorganize.
It's actually a perfect opportunity to bring the operation in-house. So you're not as stressed and overburdened, trying to hurry up and make it happen. You have time to work it through. You're gonna send Terry and a couple people down for some training, so that all works out. So if it was at a busier time, it might have been a little tougher decision, but I think right now we made the right choice of bringing it in-house.
So to add to this, expand on it, in a case like this, how can the BOC and the county, with our different departments, help you, or help the airport get through this kind of thing. I've flown into airports where, we're a co-sponsor of the airport, obviously the DOC is, but, where the county or the city supports, even Frank might throw something at me, but as long as we don't, get illegal with it, there have been people that have fueled my airplane that worked for the county. So, it's just how you arrange that and.
Well, as we're discussing in this meeting, I think one of the things is if the airport authority can get that, those goals put together and have visibility amongst you folks so that you can see where we're going and
That's
what
where I
we'd
was
like to
going,
do.
yeah, you
Exactly.
hit the
We
nail
can
on the head.
share these goals with, so everybody is aware. And then from there, we can start to, beat the bushes and see what we can bring in. Who can we attract? Where can we make some headway? One of the biggest things in the Atlanta area right now is that there is no space for corporate operators, no hangar space, period. That's an opportunity, but that's an outlay too, so that's something that.
Well, but I think if we talk about that right there as a specific driver for this yellow, because I think that, what Dave just hit on, is the quickest way we can take yellow and make it a bigger piece of this pie. We got a big mound of dirt sitting right out here. And to answer your question, from an airport, with the airport authority hat on, if the county can help us move that dirt into the hole and get these pads ready over here for these hangars, I think that Dave, Terry and his team can then go out and say, okay, to the Cox Communications of the world, maybe that's not them, but come build a hangar here. It's pad ready. We'll give you a land lease for 30 years. You come put the hangar here and come park your airplane here. We get the ad valorem tax on the airplane. We get the hangar. We get the property tax on the hangar for 30 years. At the end of that, the hangar belongs to us. That there are. Michael will tell you that Cobb County's airport drives a ton of commercial tax revenue from that perspective alone. And I think, we talked about low-hanging fruit in the last meeting. That's the quickest way to start balancing this in a meaningful way, where we spend the less money, because the least amount of money, because we don't have to have a ton of sewer and infrastructure to put this pad out here. If we want to bring, what did we spend over on 278 for the sewer, Dave? $1 million? To bring to the 128 acres? So $850, we spent $850,000 just to bring sewer over there, plus the cost of the land. Probably cost us $1 million, $1.5 million to move the dirt, and we've got a path to a lot more money sitting right here behind us as soon as we get that project going. So from the airport's perspective, I think, quickest point between two, straight line, is that what they say? So I think, that's something that we should think about. And then, I think your downtown and your downtown both have a long way to go and a huge upside for the county. Yeah?
Well, we use moving the mound of dirt out there for the airport authority and integration, collaboration with them. Y'all want to build a bridge or get a bridge across 278 off the Silver County Trail. How can the county support that, or, financially or whatever it is, legal, so that we team up and.
Look, I think if we show taxpayers in this county that we're gonna spend some money to make a lot of money, no one's gonna have a problem with that. What they have a problem with is when we spend money and then we don't pay it back. That's where we get ourselves in trouble. So, that's why I say with the plan, particularly like what we're talking about with these hangars, your bridge, I'm sure there's a project, what is it in your city that you need, Yeah, absolutely.
We collaborate on events. We, withheld a lot of events here during COVID, but, the Taylor Farm, 4th of July, that's an event rather than a construction or capital improvement, but
And then the compound on that, the Dallas Industrial Park, Michael's gone, and I'm not gonna try to steal any thunder, but from an IBA perspective, my goal over the last 6 months has been to figure out how we can package the property that we own and get rid of it. Get it on somebody's either development project or get it into ownership of somebody else. Michael's gotten Georgia Power to kindly give us a mock-up of what the rest of Dallas Industrial Park can look like. I think we've got 200,000 square feet of industrial space we can put out there, or 180,000?
75 plus, about 135.
Okay, 130, but did we get that last piece figured out yet?
The,
The one up by the sheriff's department?
no, not that one, that's not included in that.
So we just get the two? Okay, so 135,000, 60,000 square foot building and
One that could be expanded up to 75,000.
and we've spent the money to have the sewers inspected. We've got some problems, but we're about to get that over to the county.
Yep.
So that all can get pushed by the EDO. We actually have a company that's interested in the property that's above Setco, and it's a legitimate ask, and then the 128 acres, we're actually leaving this meeting and going to meet the first set of potential developers for that property to get it moving. So those projects are coming, and those are gonna bring meaningful industrial or commercial square footage to what's going on from the IBA's perspective.
Since that's Dallas property, the Dallas Industrial Park, so what coordination has to be completed there to bring one of these companies on?
Well, I think I can speak to Setco because we're actually going through that process right now. And so we're trying to make sure the sewer and water lines, they've been tested in the last few weeks, and they found some deficiencies, and so we're gonna have to address those.
Which we are.
Which we're in the process of
Yes.
doing. And once those are done, they'll reconfirm that they meet City of Dallas's standards, and then we can dedicate those over, and then they can issue permits to actually start to go vertical on construction in there. The other thing we have to do is look at the roadways that are in there. They'll have to be improved, obviously, up to local standards, and then once that's done, they'll be free to move forward. One of the things we're looking at, we've looked at, as you drive, if you're familiar with the industrial park, you drive in and you go to the left, there are a series of 3 cul-de-sacs on that end. One of the things we want to do is look at taking those cul-de-sacs out so that we can expand the building pad there. And that's one of the locations that Dan was just referencing, where we can put initially a 50,000 square foot building, but space to add another 25, so you could do 75,000 square feet there. And then the site just above Setco is the one where we're talking about doing a 60,000 square foot building right there, right across from the sheriff's gun range.
Well, we want to continue around the table
Yeah.
on the organizational update. Did you finish, Dave, for the airport?
Yes.
Any other?
Yes, sir, if there's any other questions, happy to help answer.
Let's just come around here to Dallas. I think it's something we ought to do every time we meet quarterly or whatever, so that the rest of the other city and the county and the chamber kind of know what y'all's priorities are. And we may think of some way we can help you that you hadn't thought of.
Right. Well, some of the big projects that we have on our list, one is that pedestrian bridge crossing, Highway 278, to get some of that Silver Comet Trail into downtown. We spend a lot of money in our sidewalks and city upgrades and also our city parks. We would love to get more people down in there. And right now, all they have is a crosswalk on 278, and nobody's gonna take their family across that. So we're looking at, we want the bridge for access, for more people to get into downtown Dallas, but also as an image thing, that would be not a historical site, but a piece that would make a statement for the city of Dallas.
So gateway
Yeah.
signage?
Yeah, something, you know, because you got the Civil Common Trail Bridge that crosses over, is that Old Villa Rica, or right there after you cross over
Yep.
Seaboard? You know, something of that nature, but it doesn't span the whole 4 lane. We're in desperate need of more commercial development in Dallas. David, you spoke of the COVID, and that's really put a damper on.
Slowed everybody down,
And we've had a lot of businesses have to close just because there wasn't enough foot traffic, because people are not out socializing. We've had to close down our events in the theater. We've had to close down, this month, we're gonna try to have our first food truck Friday, you know, in hopes that that'll help things get restarted again. But up until now, we've been dead in the water. And how do you even attract businesses or economic growth when you got businesses that are failing right there in the middle of town? So, we're in the middle of, in September, we'll be adopting a new LCI, program that will give us some guidance and leadway, and hopefully that will take some of that development that we want to take down Johnson Street. And this is where, you know, it comes in working with the county again, with that Helping Hands building there, and making that, cleaning up that corridor there as it goes through and connects to the courthouse. You know, we finished the last corridor down there by the hospital, which adds a lot to how you do the governmental complex now. So, as far as city, we want to develop more commercial, and we got a lot of people who want to come in and do a lot of residential developments. And we are pushing everybody away that wants to come in and build these starter homes.
yeah.
We're kind of using the model of Seven Hills and Bentwater. If you're wanting to bring that type of development to our city, we're here to help you. If you just want to come in here and put a cracker box up, you need to go home down to Polk County. You know, so those are the things that we're doing. And
School board appreciates that, by the way.
yeah, well, you know, it becomes a burden on every department head that we got, our public works, our public safety, you know, and we're not getting enough tax dollars for that. We're getting a lot of problems, but not enough tax.
Well, I mean, we have to have affordable housing, no question about it.
Right, we got plenty of that.
And we got plenty of it, and what we need now is to balance that,
Right.
in the county.
Just a question, is the city of Dallas, or would you be open, or does your LCI call for any multi-family development in the downtown area?
What we're looking at there is, we don't want no apartments,
Okay.
because those are nothing but problems. That's coming from all our department heads, that especially if they become government subsidized housing. We're looking to do what we've been calling loft over retail.
Okay, good.
We want to develop that throughout our downtown and even out there to get it out to the 4 lane. That's the direction that we want to take. I mean, there's some good examples in downtown Kennesaw. Smyrna is a great example, but they're obviously a lot bigger than we are. But that's the direction that we want to take the city. And get more entertainment, get more nightlife, where people, when they come home from work, they don't have to go back out to Cobb County to eat or to have entertainment.
Right.
So,
And I asked that just because City of Marietta, I'm sure everybody here is very familiar with that, but over the years, you started to see their downtown change, if you will, and I think introducing some residential, that's the right type of residential,
right.
has driven a lot of the retail, restaurants, and commercial stuff that you see on the square.
Right.
I mean, there's no question about it.
And that's what you gotta have. If you don't have that in your town, then you're not gonna get the retail.
Right.
If you don't get the retail, then you're not gonna get the
Right.
picture.
Chicken or the egg.
But that's where we're at. I mean, we've got this, the bridge, we're talking about, we'd love to see that be a joint effort with us, the county, the state, because it includes everybody in on that.
Some other things, like you mentioned before, right now, our prisoners are being housed in Acworth. You know, I feel very strongly that that needs to change, and we need to put everything we can back within our own county to support one another. You know, there's some other things in the making there with the 911 thing that we, you know, need to come to an agreement on. But this meetings like this, where we're all here, we might have a difference of opinions, but we can talk to them and work through them and come up with a solution, so.
And we don't always have to agree.
Right, well, we're not
It's not a
always
big deal.
gonna agree,
If
but
we don't always agree, nobody's gonna walk away.
I think this is very healthy for our relationship and for how everything is transpired throughout the community and how the community looks at us too. You know, they see us working together instead of constantly fighting and quarreling with one another.
Sure.
And that's imperative for economic development.
Yes.
Mr. Michael.
Everybody's united, so, I mean, I love this team quality and being united on all things, but we have to truly become united for that to happen, which means it becomes a give and take relationship.
Without question.
Quick question, Nate. Where does the movie production, you know, the rental of so many buildings downtown, what's their timeline? When do those contracts run out, and are y'all considering the extension of those?
See, that's a sore subject right now too,
Okay.
because.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
I get asked that a lot, just.
Yeah, I've had that question, that's just 2 days ago. We brought the movie people there, Warner Brothers being the biggest with that series that they were doing. And the reason being is that helped our downtown. Just them filming there, their staff being there, the people being there, promoting the businesses that were there. The hinderment is they've taken up so many of the unoccupied buildings, and they've got, I think, there's a year or 2 year contract that have on some of those buildings. And see, now we got a problem. They're not filming yet because of the COVID. Now they're trying to start back to film. And now we got another issue with one of our building owners. With his building, has to be repaired because it's become a serious hazard for the city. And we've been fighting that battle with him for 8 months. And now the movie people want to come back and start filming here soon. But we got a big gate and green silk chain link fence around the main part of our downtown square area. So there's.
Is that because of a problem with the building?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're gonna have to work that in their script, that the building was hit by an asteroid.
Yeah. So they have been back in talks with the people that they have the contracts with, and they're trying, they definitely want to do a second season.
Is there any way
I
that
read that.
the county can just push that ball down the field? Legally?
You talking about the
building?
building repair?
Is it being done?
Well, it's finally being done.
Oh, okay.
And what happened is, it was tied up in our city court for about 8 months, and then they bound it over to Superior Court, and Judge Bucci finally made a decision, and he gave him a time frame.
There we
So
go.
everything's in place now, but if it could have happened 5 months ago, we'd be a whole lot better off. So that's hindered some.
From a county perspective, we're seeing more movement towards the film industry getting back going. COVID definitely slowed everything down, but we are getting a lot more calls. In fact, recently we just had one of our older facilities that's been under contract, a short-term contract for some filming with a series that's been going on for the last 4 or 5 years. And so it's promising that it's getting back up and going, but we're starting to get a lot more phone calls.
Yeah, we are too. I mean, and I can see the positive and negative from both sides. It's great to have,
Yeah.
you know, the publicity of what's being filmed in our downtowns.
Right.
But the complaints we get are some of the coolest businesses down there are fake businesses.
Yeah, well,
And
you
they're
got.
occupying space that real businesses could
The
have.
double-edged sword is that the people who own the buildings are making their money, rent money. The opposite of that is that the citizens that live in Dallas don't have anywhere to go because all the buildings are taken up by the movie companies. So do we want to start eliminating the filming?
Well,
So
you
that
can't,
it's-
you can't, I mean, I don't think you can legally impact somebody's ability to make money. If they want to lease their building they can lease their building to whoever they want to. Now, the only way you could do it, I guess, is put an ordinance in place that there would be no movies, and that, I think,
Yeah.
and that country knows not spite your face.
But, you know, so we've discussed it, it's been, at the time, it was working and it was great for downtown, and it was great for the merchants. Now, it's not so great, because now we got all these vacancies, the movie production is not, I know they're trying to get started back up, but not sure when, and then we got this Hinderman of this building that needs to be repaired right in the dead center of the whole filming. And we got buildings that they have contracts on that they could be rented out to another person or a restaurant because they're tied up in the contract. So it's catch-22.
You think of any way we can help?
I think, you know, from our perspective, you know, we're sort of in a different situation, because what you're talking about is you're talking about individual property owners. But from our angle, we look at every one of these requests that we get, and for it, you know, it's typically for a county, you know, structure or property that the county owns. And we have to take into consideration, is it a disruption in services to our citizens? And so a lot of times we'll work around, you know, even evenings, saying, hey, you can come in, we can do that, but you're gonna have to come in the evening, because we can't shut down this office or that office because our citizens can't come in.
And so we've had the same problem where we had to shut down Main Street,
Right,
even during the middle of the day,
right.
and people had to divert down these side streets. So some people like it because of their benefit from it. There's a lot of people who don't like it because they hate the Hinderman. They have to detour to go a certain way.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the way we approach it is that we look at it's an opportunity for us. So when we are, you know, contacted, we look at every way that we can accommodate them. And we jump through those particular buckets to make sure that, you know, it's something that we can do. But I'm just encouraged, like I mentioned to Stacy earlier, that we are seeing an uptick now. So that's great. I think it's just great for our community.
And I don't know, I mean, I'm sure y'all could have some weight in this matter. We've got a developer who wants to develop right there on 278, right there at Pumpkin Vine Creek, right across from some other buildings that are already there. There's already a curb cut, median there, it's easy, but we can't get permission from the DOT to put an entrance there. When back in the mid-80s, it was planned. But
A median cut, they won't allow it.
well, we don't have to have a median cut. Median cut's already there. There's businesses on the right side of it. All we want to do is have an entrance created, decel, XL lane, so that we can put some retail out there along 278, and then going back to what we were talking about before, Michael, and having some residential development in the back that would support, you know.
So would that retail be directly marketed at the folks coming across the bridge
Yes.
from the common?
Well, just on down the road, but, I mean, it'd be directly across from where there's other, I think Kathy Helms has their business there, I think there's a church there. I mean, it wouldn't take nothing. All we need is the Georgia DOT say, hey, we're gonna allow you to make an entrance there. There's already an entrance across from it, there's a median cut already there. We can actually take Lane Road, which comes out off of Buckhannon Highway, and tie it in and reroute it where it comes out of that entrance, which would make a whole lot more sense than where it's at right now. So, you know, those are some small things that we've got in play that, you know, that's where we could probably use some clout from the county to help us with the state DOT that, hey, we're for that too. We want this to happen because it's gonna create more retail.
Has Kendall talked to George?
Can we get that on an agenda?
I've spoken with Jerry Sheridan on that. He's our representative. And I've given him all the plans. Originally.
He's representative of the DOT?
Yeah. Originally, when he presented it to the DOT, they said absolutely not. You know, it was like without even looking at it.
Just a decent.
I don't understand that.
Yeah. Then, Jerry was able to bring up that Lane Road, which comes off Buckhannon Highway, runs through there, and it used to connect right there, right near beside Pumpkin Vine Creek. And then we told him we're willing to take and redirect that Lane Road and bring it out at that intersection where it makes sense. and that would be a cut through for the whole development. Now they're a little bit more favorable of it, but we have not got a firm, yes, will allow you that interest cut.
Well, you got Jerry on it, and he's right up there at the main board meeting once a month. He
But-
can't get it done, I don't think we can.
Well, that's where it's all a political game.
But I was gonna say, we could put some pressure on them.
I mean, if everybody's for the development, how can they tell us no?
I'll get with George this afternoon, see if I can get an update from his perspective, and also talk to Scott. I'll get
I
back.
mean, we got a developer that owns the property, they're ready to do it if they know that they can get that interest cut there.
We got 44 more minutes, and you wanna do the IBA?
I just basically did.
Okay.
Frank, you're up.
Well, going along with the filming aspect, we've been filming in downtown Hiram for about the last 2.5 weeks. Got a lot of stuff going on, but that also presents a problem, as James just stated. The building from the olive tree to the dance studio, the front's right out there. You know, we've been trying for 3 years to get this guy to tap on the sewer. Which brings up another issue, Michael, on your development. The city, when they spent the $2.3 million to put that sewer into downtown, nobody bothered to look at the long-term plan and actually require people to tap on the sewer once it became available. The only requirement is, if your septic system fails, then you must tap on it. Well, if you're gonna make that kind of an investment, you need people to tap on as soon as it's done. Anyway, brought this guy to the table, talking to him, and they're just not real concerned about getting on, and I found out the other day, one of their other reasons for that is because that vacant dance studio down there, which would be an excellent place for another restaurant, they're renting it out or leasing it out to the film industry. So this guy doesn't care if he gets another tenant in there or not.
Yeah, you still get the money.
He's still getting his money, and that's an issue.
So you need a permit for a restaurant or something to go into that building in order to force the tap fee, is that what you're saying?
Well, the guy who owns the building, for some odd reason, his property management group does not think that tapping onto sewer would increase the value of that property.
And he's a
Wow.
property management group.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He's basically saying they don't have the money.
Yeah.
Would say that.
I think well,
That's what he's saying.
Well, let me ask you this, Frank, and I think we had a little bit of discussion about this last meeting. You know, is the county willing to spread that tap fee out over time? Or is the city willing to do that? I'm sorry.
we don't have a tap fee, so. They spent the $2.3 million to build it and turned it over to the county.
So the county, so you actually have tap fees, but he doesn't, right?
We have that.
Okay, that's the way, okay, so it's the other way around. But I guess my question is how's the county look at that?
If you didn't, y'all know Doug Heath, in Business 6, he just moved his business. And the rule was he had to tap on, he couldn't do a sewer, even though he only had 3 employees or 2. So since this guy already has the sewer, I don't
Wait,
know.
but
so he's
couldn't do
wasting
septic
time.
or couldn't do sewer?
He had to tap on.
He had to tap on for 3.
He had to pay for the bore underneath the highway.
Here's my question is, and I don't know if the county's in a position to do this, but can we spread that cost out over a year or over several, over 2 years or something, to give these businesses, these small businesses, and I think that would need to be a requirement. You don't want to give that to every business, but I mean, you want to encourage small business.
And we are in the process of working on our tap fees, and that's all I can say right now, is we are
We're
in
working
the
on it.
process
Okay.
of working on it.
Well, we have spread it out before.
Mhm.
it's historical that we work that out and make it more affordable.
Well, you know, we had a guy who was, owned some property in Hiram. Remember Frank, you and I went out there and looked at, he wanted to build another hotel. But the tap fee was so astronomical that he squashed the project. He just didn't do it. You know, when you're doing that building process, I wouldn't see the problem with spreading the tap fee over a period of time, because while that construction's going on, there's no burden on the water or sewer system. And until that place gets occupied, starts renting rooms, there's really not a burden, so that should give them some time to spread that tap fee over.
Or come up with a program whereby you have two options. One, pay the tap fee up front, or two, pay a percentage on your water bill in perpetuity. I mean, you know,
Do it over a 2-year period.
yeah, I mean, well, I'm just saying, period, and then at that point, the county owns the meter.
Well, that's true, that's just been an ongoing problem, not just for the city of Hiram. Throughout the county, people want to develop businesses, and the tap fee just kills them.
How
I
did
think Greg knows a way to make the sewer fail.
Wow,
We,
how did Cobb do it?
well, we had incentive programs that allowed businesses to pay over time, but they had to qualify, they had to be eligible for that. The other thing that Cobb did too is they went to a different rate structure 2-3 years ago, I think, where their fees were determined based on the size of your water meter.
Right.
So
We've
that
done
might,
that.
have you done that one?
Yeah, that was very recently, we did it in Greystone,
Okay,
it would be an outlandish number,
right.
we went to the meter side.
Yeah, because we were having a lot of problems with restaurants, particularly in the smaller downtowns, and I can remember, I'll just mention City Backworth was one, that they had a lot of restaurants that were developing downtown and wanted to occupy space, and they were getting these astronomical SDF fees based on the seats, because that's what they're based on, the number of seats in there. But that scaled it down to about, I think they, on average, let's say, probably 40,
Still
50.
expensive. When I
Still
opened the gun-
expensive, but-
When I opened the gun club in Kennesaw, it hurt.
Well, yeah,
There's a lot of square footage.
yeah.
Frank, any other, do you want to just give us kind of a state of the union for hire?
Well, unfortunately, the downside is, we just got word from our police chief, he's gonna be leaving at the end of this year. He's going to be the chief deputy over at Haralson County.
And why he's taking a step back?
Well, apparently, in Haralson County, when you run for sheriff, you know, it's not Frank Baker running for sheriff, it's like Frank Baker, who's your chief deputy gonna be.
Please don't start that rumor, okay?
Our chief has grown up in law enforcement with this guy, and the guy says, if I run for sheriff, will you be my chief deputy? 4 years ago. Jamie goes, sure, why not? So the guy ran and he lost, so he forgot all about it. Well, the selection cycle, the guy come up and said, hey, I'm running, you've got to be my chief deputy. So the guy got, unfortunately for us, the guy got elected. So Jamie's gonna be leaving at the end of the year. Then another kick in the head, Darren Allen, who does our planning and zoning down there. Darren has accepted another position, so he's leaving the 27th of this month. So we're down a couple of very key people. We'll survive, we'll make it happen, but that's just kind of a kick, because Darren was a very valuable and knowledgeable guy for the city of Hiram. He really had his act together, so finding a replacement for him is gonna be another challenge. Anyway, we're trying to work
Is
it.
this any correlation to you being mayor,
Yeah, I think it might be, yeah. If Jody leaves, I'm quitting. Talking about the bike lanes, again, people off the Silver Common Trail, we're in the process of putting together a program to run a designated bike lane from the Silver Comet into the old downtown area. We've also got the Roritan Park was given back to Hiram. We're trying to put together a plan to develop that. And we want to develop Silver Comet Trail, the dog park, the Raritan Park, and the Bentonville Strickland Memorial Park, kind of incorporate all those together. All it takes is money, and we don't have any. But that's part of our master plan to go ahead and do that. And Lori has applied for a grant through the Appalachian Water District to do a sewer project that'll bring sewer out to 92, which is desperately needed. But again, it's one of those things, you need to tell those business people, because they're crying the blues because they can't lease their space because they don't have sewer. In case like we get you sewer, you got to tap on. But I think we need to come up with some kind of a plan, how to spread things out so you're not hitting over the head right up front. That's all the good news I have.
Stacy?
Real quick, I want to introduce Greg Perry. Many of you know him, resident here in Paulding, but he's also the chairman of our board of directors for the chamber. So thank you, Greg, for being here.
Is this your big boss?
This is my
This is
boss.
who we complain to?
Yeah, this is it. Next. Just real quick as an update, I'm excited to say last week the Chamber's Workforce Development Committee met here for a full day retreat to kind of plan some of the next year programs. It's crucially important with the Partnership of Economic Development and Michael, that group also involves not only the school board, but Mayor's Perry with College Career Academy, as well as the higher education's represented, as well as the business community. But they're planning programs for 2021 for our local students, and also some industry site visits. Real excited, and we've got a conference call tomorrow to kind of confirm the plan for, but Georgia Power is going to help the chamber sponsor some economic development summits quarterly next year to help spotlight Michael and some wonderful things that are going on in the community, as well as on the state level for economic development for Georgia. So we will, we're not ready to really give you the details on that yet, but it'll be a new program for the chamber in 2021. And again, thank you to Georgia Power for the naming rights on that program. We kicked back up with our tourism committee meeting starting in August again, and so we get a great opportunity to hear from Dallas and Hiram, and as well as the county on some initiatives that are going on. That's where we use our hotel motel dollars to try to reinvest back into the community. One of the things we are doing is we're assisting Hiram with our bike lane project by providing some bike racks as well as a pump repair station. And then we're looking at doing the wall mural project, hopefully getting it started and completed by the end of this year, as well as any additional signage or
Where's that?
promotional in downtown Hiram. The bike racks will be located at 4 different places throughout, and we should be having that done here in the next few weeks.
With that being said, and not to interrupt, Frank, has anybody from the city contacted you? Because we prematurely pulled the trigger on that bike rental thing.
Yes.
And we got 12 bikes that are just sitting in storage that we could.
We investigated that option. Again, it's up to the city to decide. It's a program that they want to invest in. It's not my recommendation to make, but I don't know if it's something liability-wise that.
It looks pretty at the outset, but if you look behind the scenes, there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes than running a bicycle.
All right, well, and that's one of the issues we ran into with the legal aspect of it, and our attorney thought it was too much of a liability.
Yeah.
So that's why we pulled it back, but I think once we make that connection to the Silver Comet Trail with this bridge, that we gotta figure out a way to make that connect, because then somebody literally could get a bike in Dallas, connect to the Silver Comet Trail and go all the way to Hiram or vice versa. So, but know that if you do want to pull the trigger on that, we could be of some help there, because we have the bikes, we've already bought them, so.
We have some bikes that, the gentleman that was renting our little building there, he had the bike shop there. And the bicycles he had for rental, when he discontinued this year, because it was tough for him to staff it. And this was before the COVID thing came up and pulled out. But anyway, he had like 20 bicycles that he was renting, and we have those too, so we got the bikes. You got the bikes, you got the bikes.
I'll be the courier. of the
Paint them all the
bikes.
same color and let them go back and forth.
They could be utilized at one of the trailheads right there at the chamber too, so.
right now, they're not a benefit to us as a city, they're just sitting there gathering dust, but if there's a way to utilize them to help the chamber, help Hiram, or help the county in any way that, you know, that's some way that we can contribute to that.
The demand, you can't buy a bike anywhere. Demand is there.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing though, I'm sure this guy wasn't doing a lot of rentals on the bicycles, because he was charging a pretty heavy freight to rent the bicycle. It was like, $40 per bike for like 4 hours or something like that. Well, if you got 2 people, there's a $100 shot right there. You need to come up with some kind of a package deal, family of 3.
You guys need to just put the bird scooters in downtown. You got it all worked out at that point.
Well, ours were that, all they had to do is swipe their credit card. And by swiping that credit card, they acknowledged and agreed to the terms. And then they could return it in any of the other stations as long as they returned it. So there wasn't necessarily an hour fee that a certain person was collecting. It was all done through a computer program.
We looked into an app program, where we're using an app on your phone and a tracking system as well. Real quick though, we're excited to announce 2 events that are coming up. We've had to re-gear and rethink the way we do things. Again, it's important that we provide things for the community, and also in the name of tourism, to try to bring other people in from the surrounding areas. But we've got the Hearts for Heroes event. That'll involve the American Legion as we honor the veterans as well as public safety for our community. The American Legion will cover several of the counties around us where they're coming in. We're looking at correlating that with the College Career Academy for a car show. The American Legion will be doing a bike rally. We're excited about a parade that will honor the veterans. That will take place right here at the airport. Be a big family fun event day on November 14th. And then we also have our support local event that we are doing, Dine and Unwind in the Vines Vineyard. We are hosting a farm-to-table dinner, and we're partnering with our farmers market with a local cattleman to use local beef and local products for a big 5-course meal being provided by a local caterer with entertainment and just a wonderful evening here in the county. So tickets are on sale for that right now.
What's the date?
That is September 25th. If you're interested
Where's
in
it being
tickets.
held at?
It's being held at Qualusi Vineyards, right here in Paulding. So it's really neat. People
That's
are-
right over there off of,
Dabbs Bridge.
Dabbs Bridge Road, yeah.
So we're excited about that. And we have new signage. We were supposed to have it done in March or April. Again, everything kind of changed and took a shift, but they started yesterday with a new big reader board sign that the chamber will be able to use with our great location on 278 to promote any of our city or our county events using our reader board, as well as some business recognition for our community. So we're excited. They started yesterday. Don't know how the rain's going to look this week, but we hope it'll be up and ready to announce by the middle of next week.
Don't know what the events were, at this point, we're still planning on doing the tree lighting ceremony in Hiram. We had to cancel the 4th of July, but we're still working on the tree lighting.
And the city, we're still planning on doing the parade. There's 2 hindrances there. Of course, this COVID, hopefully that's opened up more by then. The second one is that building that has the chain link fence around it, puts a big hindrance, because it's not only taking up his building, but it's taking up city property, city sidewalk, part of Courthouse Square. So he could be done by then if he wanted to. We'll see. Either way, we're gonna move forward with the parade.
And we're hoping for our New Year's event as well, that we kicked off
Yeah,
last year. It's
yeah,
great.
that was really good.
Yeah. Chamber's hard at work.
Perfect. Anything else we got, guys? Update?
I had a couple of things. Michael, when you talked about Cobb having some problem with incentives, about requiring the companies to have local people working there, it made me think again about what we do here in the county. On the bid process, the board has to evaluate those bids, or Tabitha does, and bring to the board about the bids on anything that's put out here in the county. Paulding County is first on that, unless there's a good reason that can be documented you have to do outside the county. And I'm thinking, why can't we do something like that in the incentives package? It's not requiring that the company has to hire in the county, but there could be an incentive of some type, or it would give another point or two or whatever, if they are employing local people. It would seem that we could do something like that.
The
Now-
chamber's proud to be able to help with that as well. We have with some other businesses they have located here, either hosting job fairs for our
Mhm.
local residents, and also in using local suppliers when possible, local vendors to help build
Right.
and construct businesses that are brought in. So I think there's a way we can approach it, just some details to be worked out.
Maybe the way we do it is, if they are based here or whatever, then they get a little bit more.
Right.
We do a tiered system.
Right.
Of sorts. And if they do, I'm sorry, if they do hire from within, they can document that, and so then you get a little bit more. So that's something we could explore.
That's a great idea.
Another thing that, this is just, since I live in the southern part of the county, I hope that we get a lot more things going on in the southern part of the county. We desperately need the restaurants, we need small businesses there. And when you really look at the southern part of the county, from Ridge Road on down, there's not hardly anything there in terms of really nice sit-down restaurants or anything else. There are a few at the New Georgia Village, but there's just not a whole lot available in that part of the county. And I know these are not huge businesses that might be coming in, but they've been producing revenue. And some people talked about Dollar General going in over on Ridge Road. I think that's great because they have a lot of sales, and so that money's coming in. That money's coming into the county, so I think we have to look at things like that as being a win too.
Right.
If we get companies in with high volume of sales and helping the county that way. And then Michael, the last thing I'll mention, what is one of my favorite topics?
Website. Am I right?
Yes, I couldn't resist.
Yeah, I've got, again, once my staff person gets on board,
Right.
that is, well, she's got a lot to do when she gets started.
Does she know this?
Does she have any idea, does she have any idea the buzzsaw she's walking into?
She does. We've had some frank conversations, shall we say, and so, but yeah, she's well aware of it. And actually, just speaking about the website, and because I didn't mention this, but one of the things I've also been working on with Ann and Fred Bentley, obviously, zoning ordinance, new development standards, all that stuff. I think once we finally have that pulled together, it would be good to really push that out, publicize that to our economic development partners. Obviously, the website, Georgia State Economic Development would be another good
Well,
organization to make sure
and once that's done, can we get it on the chamber? Once the IBA is up, the EDO,
Yep.
the county's website, can we get that, can we get a spot on the county's website for that? So-
You could do a press release.
Yeah.
You could do all
So I think you absolutely need to trumpet that, no way.
Yeah.
That might be our first quarterly program.
The only thing that I think we have, there's two items left, just real quick. First off, did we have any citizen input before did anybody sign up, Yolanda? No, okay. The educational impact and issues, as you guys might imagine, we just started school back. Dr. Otot and his staff have been, I understand why they're not here today. They're working very hard to work this Rubik's Cube of 33 schools to be able to figure out how to keep schools open. They went to a hybrid model at North Paulding High School just because of the sheer volume. And I learned today that I think even with the hybrid model at North Paulding High School, there's still more students when half of them are there, there's still more students than any other school in the county, even if only half the students are there. So I think I'm right when I say that. I'll leave myself a little 2% out in case I got that wrong, but that's what I understood. But they have apparently done well because my daughter says that the most kids that were in one class at North on her days in classroom were about 15 to 17. So they're able to socially distance now. And I think what Dr. Otot's doing is he's taking that model and he's going to, there are certain schools that have the ratio of students to square footage is higher than in some other schools. So where that is a tight ratio, he's going to look at implementing that hybrid strategy on a per school basis if needed. So they are working really hard over at the school district to get that right. And then obviously with that comes the need of having virtual, the virtual school working really well, which obviously we've done for a lot of years, but not at the level. I think one full third of the students in the school system are in a virtual environment right now. I think we had 33,000 students, and I think we're knocking on 9,000 kids that chose virtual, and then take these hybrid models and put them in, and I think you definitely get very close to the 1/3 of the students being taught virtually. So their technology folks are stretched thin, their leadership folks are stretched thin, and that's why they didn't make it today. But I've talked to Dr. Otot, I've talked to Eric, the guys over at the school district appreciate the fact that this group's coming together and having a meaningful discussion for obvious reasons. And I say this again, we are a low wealth school district, even though we are what's considered a high wealth county. James hit on it. The problem our school district has is there are so many houses in that 150 to 230 range, and what happens is we break the average. So most, I think, kids in most homes have 1.9 kids. We actually have 2.9 kids, and our tax base, our tax revenue is based on 1.9, 1.5, whatever it is. So essentially, on average, we're educating that third child for free from a tax standpoint. So when we bring airplanes to the airport that collect $400,000 tax bills, it's like 180 homes with no kids. It's a massive shot in the arm to our school district. So what we're doing here, I think is very important for our school district, number one, and they appreciate it and are very appreciative of the fact that we're sitting around the table and actually finally identifying publicly that they have this problem and that we need to help them sort it out. So, so at that point, I think the only thing we have left on the agenda is the host economic development, which Chairman Carmichael, your name's next to that, so I'll let you talk about that and then we'll adjourn.
I don't believe we're ready to really start planning that yet with so many restrictions. What this is, well, I'm going to cover this. I think we ought to wait till spring, and Michael and I can continue to talk. Commissioner Wilson had promised he would come out, but that was, I think, originally we were planned for it in September, and with all the changes, and we just never followed through on that. But I think it's something we definitely need to do. I'd like to take them to the Dallas Theater and give them a video tour from a drone and any other highlights of the county. And then just give them a good brief about what's out here so they know, so they can help us out and support us. But for now, we'll talk about it next meeting. I think as far as how often we meet, I've had a conversation with a few people where I don't see there's any real big value in bringing the large group that we had here in June, but just to do it like 2 per city or 2 per chamber and county. We got 3. If you want to bring extra people in, that's fine. But when we schedule another one here in about 3 months, I don't see a reason to have such a large group.
How does everybody's calendar look on November 25th for the next meeting?
November 25th?
November 25th. Oh, is that the day? Is that the day before Thanksgiving?
You obviously don't cook Thanksgiving dinner
I
at
know,
your
I'm
house.
sorry. The 18th we have so we could do the 19th. The 19th, which is a Thursday. Now, just so everybody knows, that's a back-to-back with the airport authority again, or we could shoot for the 11th, if that works for everybody.
I like the 11th.
I like the 19th better.
Oh,
The 11th makes it fall on Veterans Day. There may be some, I know city, Dallas, you guys do something on Veterans Day.
All right, well,
What about the 12th?
how's the 12th work?
12th is good.
Ann, you got a look on your face there, you good with the 12th?
It's fine with me.
She won't be there till late anyway. So.
Yeah.
Rebecca, can we get a calendar invite out, and then we'll need to have a call meeting of the airport authority and the IBA for that day. So I'm learning. We got to get it posted and whatnot. Hopefully by that point, Michael's help will take that off my plate and keep me straight. All right, so the 12th works. Have we not talked about something that anybody wants to get on the table before we leave?
Make time out here, I had asked Ann to come out and just kind of give us what she gave the board of commissioners a couple weeks ago. She's been with Red Bentley, working on our ordinance updates. Any of you that don't know Ann Lippman, she's our community development director, and she's got a good team and does good work. So she normally has a screen and all, but
Yeah. I'll just give you some of the numbers. I do a quarterly report for the Board of Commissioners on building permits and business license. Those are two of the divisions in community development, and just July I gave one based on fiscal year data. So I'll just give you some of the numbers. Fiscal year 20, we issued 5,703 permits. That was down about 200 from 2019, and we never stopped issuing permits during the pandemic, and we never stopped doing building inspections. So I think it's remarkable that we only had 200 less in 1 year. Inspections were about the same. We kind of changed some of the way we did some of the inspections in fiscal year 2020. We had 10,322 inspections, and that was down from 12,070 in 19. I track the number of permits issued between residential and non-commercial. Fiscal year 18 was when we had the highest amount of residential permits. There was 1,568. Commercial's been going up a little between fiscal year 19, which of course we had Costco, we had Greystone. We issued 196, and that was down to 180 in 20. I was hoping that that would keep going up, but what's more telling, I have a slide, is the value of construction. In 2019, the value of non-residential construction, even though there was significantly less permits, was roughly 108 million, and residential was 134 million. So that shows you, I have a slide, and I'll try to show it. It's got both, this one was from last year, it's got the Costco and the Greystone, and you can see one Costco is worth 153 houses. So we want to have more Costco's and Greystones in the future, because the value of construction and the tax value is much higher.
And there's no kids to educate.
Exactly, but they still pay taxes. I track population growth by post 4, wins just about every month.
that's the northern county.
Yeah, and I also broke it down this morning by, I track all the high school, middle school, and elementary school zones. North wins by far. I remember when I started doing this, I used to send the data to Ken Ellsbury. And the very first time I sent him data, I was like, how are North Paulding and McClure Middle School not busting at the seams?
They
I
are.
think his response was that they weren't busting at the seams.
Yeah.
And, so I have that.
They burst at the seams already.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened.
Bursted.
Made national news.
I tracked, just real quick, I wanted to compare calendar years 2019 and 18. I had kind of, when the pandemic hit, I thought the building would slow down. From January to July in 2018, we issued 963 residential permits. 19, it started going down, we issued 775. And in 2020, we were back up to 848. And I'm sure there's articles out there. I think people maybe don't see the allure of living downtown in a condo with lots of close neighbors, and there is, you know, some sort of thought of moving out to the suburbs and the exurbs.
And man, how that changed quickly in a
Yeah,
6
it changed like that. And, so I think, you know, our planning and zoning staff, they get calls every day of people, you know, looking for land to build houses. So I'm afraid our residential number's gonna go up. Flipping over to our business license, as of July 8th, we had unincorporated Paulding County had 3,181 occupational tax permit. It's not really a license to do business. I have to do a little education. It's a tax on the number of employees you have in Paulding County. And when we had collected over $500,000 in revenue. The breakdown, we always break down, distinguish between commercial locations and home occupations, and steadily for the past year, we've been running about 72% home occupations versus 28% commercial. And one of the, we have 3 lovely ladies in the permanent business license office that are willing to help people in one of the projects they worked out in spring. As we're working on updating our development ordinances, we're gonna transfer all of our zoning district titles to what's called the North American Industrial Classification System. And that's a spot that we can put in our business license system. So our ladies figured out what everybody's NAICS, we call it NAICS number was, and the top, you go from a 2-digit down to a 6-digit code. So the top 2-digit codes were construction with 25%, retail trade was 13%, administrative and support was 12%, other was 11. We have a lot of e-commerce, and I think the e-commerce falls into that other services, and the professional and technical was at 9%. Now, if you go to the 6-digit codes, I wanted to know what the top 3 businesses in the 6-digit code, and it was residential remodelers, landscaping services, and electronic shopping and mail order were the top 3. And so I've got this, and I'll be able to share it with anybody, and I shared it with Michael when I did it. Because there's some categories that we want to see those numbers
Come down, yep.
come down, and we want to see some
Some go up.
go up. So,
So, and I was in talking to somebody the other day, because I'm trying to get a sense of what the Northeast growth is looking like in post-4. And I was told that there are 9,600 platted lots that can be built on in the Northeast corridor right now. Does that number track with what you know?
probably does.
So you got a lot of work to do. If Costco's 153 houses, then you need to divide that by 153 and start selling, mother. And Dave, I mean, look, at the end of the day, 180 houses is an airplane. Let's get some hangars built and get some airplanes parked in this town.
And I've got a question. How many senior developments are on the books right
We
now?
have
I know there's several
We
new
have
ones.
7, 8. I always forget about the
Oh, that brings me to another question. Are we beginning to work on, like, I noticed that there were a couple 55 and up developments that are in that 10,000, as I was doing the analysis on the number of lots. How's the county gonna enforce 55 and up? Are we gonna require an HOA in perpetuity for those
Yes.
deals? Because I think at the end of the day, if we don't, then what happens is you build them, they're supposed to be R55, and then everybody goes away, they turn into rental property, and
We
that's.
have a requirement in R55 that they have to have a mandatory homeowners association, and that they have to state that it's for 55 and older. Now, federal law, and I believe Georgia state law, it's an 80-20 split. 80% of people have to be over 55. And we also have a requirement for single-family attached and detached that only 10% can be leased. And we just had a final plat, I'm not gonna name the subdivision, that was ready for signature, and I was like, I need to see your HOA covenants. And they were missing, they had an incorrect number in one of those, and we didn't sign it until this morning,
Great.
until they got their covenants.
So we're holding
correct.
feet to the fire. That's important. I think everybody needs to hear that.
Once it moves forward, I mean, HOAs, I think, are required to do surveys, and I think we'd have the right to show us your survey that, shows in compliance, and I think there's mechanisms that we have to at least follow up on.
And as a city, we're pushing the same thing. I mean, when I was talking about we don't want starter homes, any of these big developments that want to come in and develop a big pie, we're pushing senior communities. Because we'd rather have senior communities versus apartments or townhomes.
Sure. Thank you, Andy.
You're welcome.
Anybody else got anything? So, Michael, our homework between now and the next meeting is to get with the two cities
Yep.
and the county and try to get as many of these guidelines adopted and voted on at that level, so that we can come back and, that's our small goal between now and the next meeting.
Yes.
Yep?
Yep.
Everybody good with that? Anybody got anything else they want to add to the small goal plate? I think that's a pretty big deal right there, if we can get that done.
Let
Yep.
the citizens know that the city of Hiram and the city of Dallas, the buildings down there are not owned by the city. They don't control what's rented and what's not. Because I'm seeing a lot of that, and they're holding the mayors accountable when it's not them.
James, are you gonna actually run in the special election? Great, okay. All right, well, I think we are 4 minutes under the wire,
Yay.
so hopefully we respected your time today, and I appreciate everybody taking a minute to come out and spend with us this morning.
Ditto.